Hi, welcome to the Andrew Buckle book review of Doctor Who Production Diary, the Hartnell years. If you're a Doctor Who fan, just say straight away, this has got to be a must purchase. This is by David Brunt and this is from Telos. The Cybermen secretly are producing this. No, I don't think they are. But Telos website is amazing. I absolutely love Telos website. Though, to be fair, I actually bought this on Amazon. But I have bought some things on the Telos website and I love the place. This is volume 1. There's obviously going to be a volume 2 at some point. Soon volume 3 maybe. Of course, there's the volume 2 listed there. Don't know when it's going to come out. This came out this year. 668 pages of everything you could ever want to know about Doctor Who. Now, I don't want to say too much because, well, you could read it and find out. You think, oh, hang on, I never realised that. Or this or that about Doctor Who. But it goes into loads of things about all the various studios, rehearsal halls, dinners, script changes, all the props, everything. Just real solid detail. Obviously, not everything is known. Obviously, some information is been lost to history, people's memories, whatever, all the forms, things that people write out. Sometimes, obviously, it's not clear, maybe the date and those sort of things. So, obviously, some sort of are made in this, but still, I think this is just absolutely amazing. And you can hear season 1, 100,000 BC. Now, I always knew it was, of course, Unearthly Child, but of course, that's the mutants as well. So instead of the robots, it became the mutants, which is probably closer to the way the Daleks are. Obviously, Keys of Marinus, the Aztec Sensorites, you can see, obviously, the mix of Marco Polo, of course, history as well as science fiction. Celestial Toymaker, of course, recently come back. You can see there, Celestial Toy Room, the Hall of the Dolls, etc. Smugglers, and finally the 10th Planet. Note from Savages, they obviously say individual episodes no longer on screen titles. But fascinating book, this one. You've got all the various people involved, lots and lots of names there, because it also goes into things like the comics as well, TV comic. There was also one talk here about having it in a girls' comic. You think, oh, okay. But I must admit, I loved reading it when it was in TV comic, but I guess script project numbers. You can see all those, got those details, office allocations, again, all the things you really want to know. But also it's got a little bit of prehistory, not obviously going back to 100,000 BC. Could do that, of course. And a little bit more there, telling all about the various studios. Also, of course, Quatermass and the Pit, obviously are fairly important. And also things like A for Andromeda as well, gets quite a bit mentioned. And also other things as well, like the Big Pull and the Monsters, things I must admit, not particularly familiar with. But it's just amazing when you read all the way through this, all the things that were changing all the time. It's quite, some things you think, oh, well, they call it, let's find something here. You've got obviously Malcolm Holt, of course, went on to do lots of Doctor Who. Pathfinders in Space. Talks about, of course, the Doctor Who machine. At that point, it was not known as the TARDIS. And it talks about various gimmicks and things, writing for an audience aged 14, talking about various... it is a transparent plastic bubble. Those sort of things. You think, that would have been different, but still. Also got like a magic, dear old magic door, light-resistant paint, all those sort of things. Just weird how they obviously were thinking up ideas, what they were going to do. All the people that were going to be in it, they were talking about the Doctor, like Merlin, Doctor Who. So Merlin, obviously slightly different. Aladdin, those sort of things. Whole load of different ideas were thrown in. You've got here with Biddy has now dropped the 15-year-old girl's name, suggest alternatives such as Mandy, Gay, Sue, Jill, Janet or Jane. And also Cliff. Obviously didn't become that, but you've got obviously Ian, Miss McGovern or Lola. And then you've got here, Doctor Who is now given us 650 years old, frail aspect, etc. Also talking about the various secrets, about obviously he stole the various, those sort of things. Loads and loads of information. But even after a couple of pages, it changes. This bit talks about how the Doctor Who comes across Sue in the fog. Cliff and the history mistress, Miss McGovern, come across Sue in the fog. She asked them to help find the home of a strange old man. Obviously, at that point, maybe she wasn't the granddaughter of the Doctor. But there's just tons and tons of things like that. Obviously, it was constantly in flux, and it's just wow. the making of Doctor Who 1963 here. It goes through, obviously, finally, we've got C.E. Chesterton, those sort of things. Obviously, Verity Lambert's mentioned there, and many, many more. And you just go page after page. Also, the episodes that was going to be the first one, say Doctor Who and the Robots, all discussion about all the various things. Also, how it was going to be filmed, on what material it was going to be. Obviously, a videotape instead of 35mm. That would have been brilliant, 35mm. Maybe 70mm. That would have even been better, wouldn't it? Probably cost a lot more, but still, wow. Quality pictures later on. 4K. They obviously weren't thinking about 4K, were they? Those sort of things. But it would have been nice if they'd recorded it on that. And also, of course, actually kept them all. That would have been even nicer, wouldn't it? Instead of wiping the tapes. But still. And also talks about all various copyright issues. Loads of things like, obviously, because people would produce something, and of course they would, then the BBC had to contact them and say, oh, you know what, you can't do that. That's too much like XYZ. And so, although it's got lots of details about all these kind of things. Now, spaceship's police box, the way they call it, spaceship. And tons about the graphics, the designs, prop requirements, everything you could ever want to know about, like the tribe of Gum. At that point, videotape insert of Tsar being attacked by a tiger for the tribe of Gum. And also like Marco Polo, talking about the scripts, all the various scripts, obviously scripts, rehearsals, when the rehearsals were done, obviously the week before or whatever. And it just gives loads and loads of details. Doesn't actually go into details about the rehearsals, how many things were changed at that point. And also talking about the things like Blue Peter, shown here, BBC featuring the Make It Yourself Dalek. Apparently that was whatever week, obviously round about March in 1964. Obviously the Daleks were immensely popular. And I guess apparently it's fascinating to read, they didn't actually tell anyone that Doctor Who was returning. So the first season apparently they just did it. And then they would have loads of letters, people saying, is it coming back? Are we going to get another series? All those sort of things. Also the monies as well. It goes into details about the costs of various things, how much they could afford for this episode, 2,000 whatever, and £10 each for the temple ornaments. So it's got lots of details. The Aztecs ones, Lime Grove Studio. It also targets scripts for the Reign of Terror, and how much also about the music as well. Paid for his 22 minutes and 51 seconds of recorded music for the censor rights. Just videotape editing, everything. Just page after page after page about all the and all the things, of course, that didn't happen. All about the things that also probably perhaps also talking about Doctor Who, talking about Shakespeare, Secret, just fascinating. And also, of course, the Space Museum, all those sorts of things. Of course, many of these shows, unfortunately, you can't see other than, of course, in animated versions now. I quite enjoy those. I must admit, I've not been enthused by the recent one where they got 3D. Now, I'd love to hear any comments. Is anyone like that? I mean, I think it looked awful, but I might be completely wrong. Maybe I'm just being very unfair. Maybe it looks very good. But I've been used to the lovely other animated ones. I've enjoyed all those. So when they brought this one out, I don't know, something about 3D. I've never been a fan of 3D. But still, it talks about, obviously, all the novelisations. And also, of course, the comics as well, the TV comic. It talks about here, the TV. Doctor Who meets the Frog People. Also about the Ancient Miracles. Those stories were slightly different from the actual Doctor Who. Obviously, they didn't have the rights to... You had different companions as well. All those sort of things. It also talks about, like, Vicky as well. Obviously, Maureen O'Brien. Obviously, the change. Obviously, Susan left, and then you had obviously someone else come in. Obviously the Romans, she didn't have a name. Her name changed quite a bit as well. So it gives all those sort of details about that. Also, of course, talks about Nicholas Courtney here as well, talking about the various episodes. The Curse of Daleks even talks about the stage play, which I must admit, I wonder if anyone's got, is there recordings of that? Perhaps there's just some photos maybe, but it talks about the stage play, the Wyndham Theatre in London. And also talks about all the various things about obviously the figures for how many people watch the show, sometimes 6 or 7, whatever, million, amazing figures that watch them. And it just goes page after page after page. And that is the Hartnell. It really is an amazingly interesting book. Absolutely fascinating. I love Doctor Who. Love flicking through this. I mean, I haven't read it all the way through. It's a lot of information. I only just got it a couple of days ago. So it's one of those ones that I've been just dipping into. I know enough about the Doctor Who and the Hartnell years to actually fit sort of all the things together. It's obviously interesting when you read about one time, you think, oh, was that before that? Was that changed around because of various reasons they had to move it around? Just fascinating. Also, talking about various expenses here in Trafalgar Square about, to feed the pigeons. 2 shillings. Apparently they had to pay, obviously paying for to feed the pigeons. That sort of detail. I mean, that is really going into some detail. But wow, absolutely lovely book. And well, I've got a few Doctor Who books, but I think this is probably most comprehensive I've ever seen. Certainly for obviously William Hartnell. I watched a lot of the William Hartnell ones. I actually watched the first episode, though I don't recall it. My mum told me, yes, you watched the first episode. Of course, it was around that time, obviously, a certain important event happened. And so, yes, I definitely was watching it, but I was only about 2 or 3. I don't think I took anything in of that, but I remember certainly some of the Doctor Who ones, the 10th Planet. I was really into Doctor Who by that point. I love the Cybermen. Those Cybermen then in the Frozen, it was just amazing. And also, of course, some of the other ones, the old museum ones, Space Museum, all those sort of ones were just great. Sadly, I'm not certain I can ever say that I can watch them again because, of course, most of them are gone. But certainly when I've watched, and they're on iPlayer. I don't know if they're still on iPlayer. I assume they're still on the iPlayer. They're always great to watch when you flick through those and see lots of those great old episodes from Hartnell and Troughton. But for me, the Troughton years are going to be the one that I really, really look forward to read. But I suspect by that point, lots of the information obviously has sort of settled in place. Only now, of course, now it's gone all over the place. Who knows about the Doctor anymore? It's just like every week there's always a new revelation that something. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised to find out he's not even a Time Lord anymore. That would be the next revelation. They say, oh, well, actually, I'm not a Time Lord. Just some other alien from somewhere. Because that's the way it goes with Doctor Who. You just think, what more power? Actually, saying that, at least in this series, which I did enjoy. I know probably lots of people didn't, but I did enjoy the series. I thought it got better and better all the way through. It didn't actually add too many powers to him because quite often there's trouble with some of the sort of David Tennant and some of the other ones. There was always sort of new powers all the time. You think, this sooner I thought he was going to fly or something. That sort of thing. That would be weird, wouldn't it? But I still enjoy them. They're still very, very watchable. Not every episode. And I'm certain there's some of these episodes in here are pretty unwatchable, but some were very, very good. And I love that old style of the old 60s TV. I love like the Avengers. Love watching those old Avengers from the 60s. Just brilliant. Now obviously it is different, but they had a certain style that I really, really enjoyed. And certainly this one is just a brilliant book. Totally, totally recommended for any Doctor Who fan. The Doctor Who Production Diary.